you struggle with having self-control around food, it's probably because you don't yet understand this one concept that I'm about to share in this video. There's just one mindset shift you need to make that you probably haven't heard of yet. You might have the goal of eating healthier or losing weight, or maybe you just want to improve your relationship with food and not feel like it's a constant struggle to have good eating habits. You might also feel like no matter how many times you tell yourself that you're going to start eating healthy tomorrow, you always end up just going back to unhealthy foods. Being a registered dietitian, I've learned a lot about having self-control around food through doing lots of my own research, but also through my own personal experience. I've done many different things to try to have more self-control around food, like calorie counting and having really strict food rules, but nothing really stuck with me until I made this one mindset shift. I really started to see a difference in my eating habits, and I was able to regain my self-control around food, not overeat as much, not get as many cravings, and just have a better relationship with food overall. I'll not only tell you what that mindset shift is, but also how you can start doing this to have more self-control around food in your own life. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll also tell you how you can use 2 of my completely free digital resources that will help you so much with this. So let's start off by talking about what self-control really means. Self-control is defined by our ability to overcome urges, emotions, and desires that would prevent us from reaching our goals. So in other words, it is our ability to resist temptation. For the longest time, scientists have thought that it was just a fixed trait, that it was either something you were born with or something you only had if you had a good upbringing. But the truth is that self-control is actually not a fixed trait at all, and it's something that we can increase or decrease ourselves. So first we have to understand what decreases our self-control, then I'll talk about what the mindset shift is that you need to increase your self-control. So scientists have found 2 main things that decrease our self-control, and Healthy Gamer GG, who is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and one of my favorite YouTubers, talks about this in one of his videos. But basically there are 2 main factors that decrease our self-control. Number 1 is that the more we try to suppress our emotions, the more our self-control decreases. And number 2 is the more stress we feel, the more our self-control decreases as well. So the way that I've thought about this that makes the most sense to me is to think about self-control like your phone battery percentage. So if you charge your phone overnight, then in the morning when you wake up, you're starting with 100% of your battery, or 100% of your self-control. And then later on during the day, let's say you go to work and your boss yells at you or your teacher yells at you. Your natural response is to get mad or upset, but since you know that this is an inappropriate response, you try to suppress your emotions instead. And what this does is it actually decreases your self-control. So now your self-control percentage is at 60%. And then now it's time for you to go home. So you're in your car, you're driving back home, and then you remember all of a sudden that you forgot your phone in the bathroom. So now you're stressed out about this. You're stressed out about what you're gonna do. Are you gonna turn back around and then you're gonna have to spend another extra hour or so stuck in traffic? So then you get really stressed out by this idea, and what that does is it decreases your self-control even more, and boom, now you're at 10% self-control. So by the end of the day, when your self-control is so low, when you're faced with the option of either having an apple or a cookie, of course you're gonna go for the cookie because you just have no self-control left to make yourself pick the apple. That's also one of the reasons why people tend to overeat more in the evening than they do in the mornings. And there's actually scientific evidence to show this connection between our emotions and our levels of self-control. Scientists have found that there's a specific part of our brain called the anterior cingulate cortex that actually becomes less active when we try to suppress our emotions or when we face some level of stress. And the interesting thing is that one of the main functions of this part of our brain is to pay attention to our internal conflict. Now this is really important because what it means is that when we try to suppress our emotions or when we face some level of stress, then this part of our brain gets less active and we actually stop paying attention to our internal conflict. And as a result of that, our levels of self-control actually go way down. Let's go back to the apple and cookie example. You know the idea of having like an angel and the devil on your shoulders? Well, they're constantly arguing in your head and they actually make up the thoughts in your head. So the devil can actually be telling you that,
oh, you should eat the cookie, like you deserve to eat it, you've been stressed all day, you should just eat it.
And then the angel is going to be telling you,
don't eat the cookie, have the apple instead, because it's better for you and you should be healthy and try to stick with your goals.
And this is what I mean by internal conflict. It's that conversation in your head, that back and forth argument that you get when one part of your brain tells you you should be doing something, but the other part of your brain is telling you the complete opposite. But here's where the good news is. So since we know that paying less attention to this internal conflict decreases our self-control, the same is true for the opposite. That means that you literally have the power to increase your self-control simply by paying attention to that internal back and forth conflict in your head. And yeah, those two things are literally linked to each other in the brain, because the more you pay attention to that internal conflict, that lights up that part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, and it leads to your self-control levels increasing. And you may be thinking right now that actually paying attention to that conflict in your head isn't going to do anything for you, because how does this actually make sense? You could be listening to those thoughts in your head, but at the end of the day, you might still feel like every cell in your body is telling you to pick that cookie. And I totally get this. And this is where that mindset shift needs to come in. Because when I first learned about this, I could not stop myself from eating unhealthy foods either. Like when I had a craving for something, I would still give into it most of the time. But then I started to practice more self-awareness, and I started to pay attention to that internal conflict in my head more. So whenever I wanted to eat something, I noticed that there's always two sides of the conversation. One part of me would be saying, don't eat this, it's so unhealthy, oh my god, you're gonna gain weight. Then the other part of me would be saying, it's okay, you need to treat yourself, like don't restrict yourself, you should eat whatever you want to eat. So I started journaling these thoughts down on my phone, and that made it so much easier for me to actually pay attention to that conversation that was going on in my head. Because I was writing it down on my phone, I could physically see what my thoughts were, and that just like solidified it in my head, and I knew like, yeah, this is what is going on and this is what I have to work on. And this is not a quick process, okay? This took me like weeks to actually learn and implement. But the more that I did this, I found that I actually gave in to my cravings less frequently. So the next time you're trying not to eat an unhealthy food, turn up the volume of that conversation inside of your head. Literally pay attention to what one side is arguing for and what the other side is arguing for. And I've also made a completely free tool for you to use. It's an online tool. It's called the craving tool. It walks you through step by step. I've linked it down in the description below. Don't click on it right now because I have yet to make my most important point of this video. But yeah, you can check that out later. I've spent hours working on it, and honestly, like, it's helped me so much with gaining awareness and paying attention to that internal conflict. So what is the most important mindset shift that you need to make? The mindset shift you need to make is to stop thinking about success as the outcome, but instead to think of success as just paying attention to the thoughts in your head. What do I mean by outcome? When I say outcome, I mean the outcome of giving into the craving or not giving into the craving. Stop worrying about that, okay? Stop trying to force yourself to not give in to this craving, because that is such an internal struggle for you to like try to force yourself to not eat the cookie, you know? It's not about that. It's about just paying attention to that conversation in your head. And as long as you do this, the science literally says that you will improve your self-control, and that's exactly what happened to me. In the beginning, when you start doing this, don't expect yourself to always pick the healthier option right away. Like, it's gonna take you weeks or even months of you consistently doing this and actually like really improving your self-awareness to see a difference. Like, it's not just an overnight thing that you can just do one day and it's like, ooh, you know, you're suddenly eating healthy all the time. You will naturally get to a point where you don't even need self-control to reach your health goals. You will just end up doing it naturally, and you will want to pick the healthier option. And this is really good news, because it's not about having to struggle to reach your health goals, you know? It's just about being mindful with what you're eating, paying attention to your own thoughts in a non-judgmental way. And this is why meditating and journaling and practicing mindfulness is so helpful. Whether you're using my craving tool, or you're journaling your thoughts down, or you're doing some breath work and doing a little bit of meditating, that's one step in the right direction, and that is a win, okay? That is your win. Even if you end up picking the unhealthier option. I don't care, because as long as you took that step to increase your self-awareness about what you're doing, then that is a success, and that's the one mindset shift that you need to make. If you want help with this, then definitely check out my craving tool. It's linked in the description below, and I've spent hours working on this. It's completely free to use. I don't get anything out of it. I literally just wanted to make something that would hopefully help someone else out there and make it easier for you to implement this. So I hope that you've gotten something out of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.